I never thought I'd be fined for swimming in my own pool, but that's exactly what happened. It all started on a regular Saturday afternoon. I had some friends over, the sun was out, and we decided to take a dip. Nothing crazy, just relaxing music, a few laughs, and a peaceful swim. But apparently, that was too much for my neighbor, who also happens to be on the HOA board. You know the type, always watching, always complaining. Let's just call her Karen. She didn't like the noise, or the fact that people were using the pool, even though it's completely on my private property. Next thing I know, I get a letter in the mail, an official fine from the HOA. For unauthorized use of my own pool I thought it had to be a mistake. So I reached out, thinking we could work it out. But nope. Karen doubled down, even threatened more penalties if I didn't comply. At first, I was frustrated, but then I got creative. If they didn't want me using my pool, fine. I locked it up, put up a fence, and blocked access from everyone. Let's just say that didn't sit too well with the community or Karen. What happened next? Oh, it took a turn no one expected. To really understand how things got this far, you have to know a bit about how this HOA operates. It's the kind of neighborhood where everything looks perfect on the outside, trimmed hedges, quiet streets, smiling neighbors. But behind the scenes, it's all politics and power plays. Karen's been on the HOA board for years, and she acts like she owns the whole block. She watches everyone like a hawk, writes people up for tiny things, leaving a trash bin out too long, a garden hose left uncoiled. People either keep their heads down or get written up. I didn't think much of it until I was the next target. When I bought this house, one of the biggest reasons was the backyard pool. It was mine, fully within my property line. No shared space, no HOA maintenance, just a private place to relax. Or so I thought. According to the fine I got, Karen claimed my gatherings were disruptive and violated HOA guidelines and noise and community standards. There was no warning, no conversation, just a fine and a threat. I tried asking for specifics. What rule did I break? Who complained? But all I got were vague answers and cold emails. So when I put up that lock and blocked off the pool, I figured maybe now they get the message. But that only stirred up more drama. After I blocked access to the pool, things got weird, fast. Suddenly, I was the talk of the neighborhood. Some neighbors quietly supported me, saying they'd had run-ins with Karen too, but were too nervous to speak up. Others started giving me the cold shoulder, like I was the villain for not letting the community enjoy my private pool, even though they were never invited in the first place. And that's when it hit me. People actually thought the HOA had some kind of shared rights to it. Spoiler alert, they don't. A few days later, I noticed Karen walking by more often than usual. She'd slow down, sometimes even stop and stare at the backyard, like she was waiting to catch something. Then one morning, I woke up to find a notice stuck to my front door, another fine, this time claiming my new fence was not in compliance with HOA design standards. Funny thing is, the fence wasn't even visible from the street, but they said I needed approval before installing anything. Approval for fencing in my own pool . That's when I started digging into the HOA bylaws. The deeper I looked, the more inconsistencies I found. Some rules didn't even apply to my property. But it seemed like Karen and her board were just making things up as they went, and I wasn't the only one who had noticed. That's when I realized this wasn't just about the pool, it was about control. Karen had been using her position on the HOA board to pressure people for years, and most folks just went along with it to avoid conflict. But once I started asking questions and challenging the fines, it was like I kicked a hornet's nest. I started getting letters weekly, citing random violations. Unauthorized landscaping, improper lighting, even non-compliant patio furniture. Seriously, it felt personal now. Meanwhile, I kept hearing whispers from neighbors. One guy down the street said he'd been fined for painting his door a shade too dark. Another got a notice for leaving holiday lights up 2 days past the approved time frame. The more stories I heard, the more obvious it became. Karen wasn't just enforcing the rules, she was making them up as she went. But no one wanted to go up against her. Until now. One night, after getting another ridiculous notice about the visual obstruction of my locked gate, I decided enough was enough. I gathered every notice, every fine, and every email. I started documenting everything, dates, photos, even video. I wasn't going to let her keep pushing me around. Just a few days before the HOA meeting, I got a knock at the door. It wasn't Karen this time. It was a man in a button-up shirt holding a clipboard. He introduced himself as a city code enforcement officer. Apparently, someone had filed an official complaint about my property, claiming I'd made unpermitted structural changes. I knew immediately who had reported me. But this wasn't just another HOA letter. This was the city getting involved, and that changed everything. He asked to inspect the fence and the pool area, so I walked him around and explained the situation. He seemed confused, flipping through his notes, clearly not expecting to find everything in order. I had all the permits from when the pool was originally built, and the new gate didn't even require one. After about 20 minutes, he said there was nothing out of line and left. But the fact that it had gone this far, that Karen was now dragging in outside agencies, that lit a fire under me. Then something even more unexpected happened. I got an anonymous envelope in my mailbox. Inside were printed screenshots, emails between Karen and other HOA board members. They were discussing me by name, joking about how many fines they could issue, and even suggesting ways to apply pressure. That's when I knew, for sure, this was bigger than just a personal grudge. By the time the HOA meeting rolled around, I was ready. I showed up early with a folder full of documentation, photos, fines, emails, and of course, those printed screenshots. The room was packed, more than usual, and I could feel the tension the second I walked in. Karen was seated at the front, pretending not to see me. But the second the open floor session began, I stood up and laid everything out. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just told the truth, how I'd been fined for using my own pool, how rules were applied inconsistently, how outside authorities were brought in over petty complaints. Then, I pulled out the anonymous emails. The room went silent. People leaned forward in their chairs. One board member actually looked down and wouldn't make eye contact. I asked if the HOA would like to explain the contents, or if I should take it further, maybe to a lawyer. That got their attention. After some awkward whispering, Karen tried to dismiss everything as a misunderstanding. But it was too late. The crowd was awake now. People started sharing their own stories, things they'd been too afraid to bring up before. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about how the HOA had been misusing power. The board voted that night to open a full review of all complaints and violations issued over the past year. Karen stepped down voluntarily a week later. But here's the twist. I found out the anonymous envelope. It came from someone asterisk on the board asterisk. Turns out, not everyone agreed with how things were being handled. And while the pool's quiet now, the neighborhood, not so much. The board voted that night to open a full review of all complaints and violations issued over the past year. Karen stepped down voluntarily a week later. But here's the twist. I found out the anonymous envelope. It came from someone asterisk on the board asterisk. Turns out, not everyone agreed with how things were being handled. And while the pool's quiet now, the neighborhood, not so much. After Karen stepped down, things started to shift. The new HOA board was more transparent, actually listened to concerns, and even revised a bunch of outdated rules, including the ones about gatherings and backyard features like fences. The fines, most of them, including mine, were wiped clean after the review. Turns out, several were never properly documented to begin with. Neighbors who used to avoid eye contact now stopped to chat. Some even thanked me for standing up, saying they'd felt trapped for years. And that board member who slipped me the emails, still anonymous. But I have a feeling they're watching things closely, just from a better place now. As for the pool, it's open again, but I keep it quiet. Just close friends and family. No more HOA drama, no more mystery complaints. It's finally what I wanted from the start, a peaceful spot in my own backyard. Looking back, it wasn't about a pool. It was about standing up when something felt unfair, even when it's uncomfortable. HOAs can help a neighborhood stay nice, but when people use them for control, someone has to push back. And sometimes, all it takes to break the silence is locking the gate and saying enough.